like to call to order the Hingham School Committee meeting of October 10th, 2017 at 7:31 p.m. And our first order of business is approval of minutes. We have 2 regular session minutes and 2 executive session minutes, and we are having executive session later on this evening, and we'll approve those minutes at that time. So if I may have
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee planning session that was held on September 9th, 2017.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on September 11th, 2017.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Questions and comments? Audience comments are always welcome as agenda items are discussed. Does anyone have anything not on our agenda to share with us tonight? Thank you very much. 4, superintendent's report. Good news first. It's always a good thing.
Well, lots of good news, but what I chose to focus on tonight wasn't about students or teachers or awards or whatever, but about money. That's always a good news topic when it's coming in our direction. So just noting that a couple of the things that are in later items, in particular, some reimbursement dollars in the amount of $16,000 for savings that we have made in terms of electrical costs, and those dollars can then be reinvested, as we did many times in the past. We had at one point in our history a time when we were replacing all of the ballasts in our classroom lighting, and that project was originally funded by a grant from the Wilder Foundation. And we were able to keep reinvesting that over and over and over and get some significant savings. So thanks to Doug and Katie and all of the people that were responsible for getting that. There were a number of other things in Doug Foley's report that indicate the various ways that project can be funded. In some cases, there are dollar savings there that result from a warranty item. There are savings that result from taking advantage of other local resources, and so the good news really is to celebrate those support staff that we have that not only add to the value and care of our properties, but also can bring us some dollars to fund those projects. So that's a good news thing.
It's great.
Also, under superintendent's report, this is the October 1, and most of you are aware that the October 1 count each year is the one that we use for any longitudinal comparisons. So as we're talking about having a formal independent projection done as we move forward with our master plan, and but most particularly with Foster, we will use October 1 to October 1 dates when we get into the budget, and the initial presentations show the various enrollment graphs, and for budget purposes we use October to October 1 date. So this is it. Class sizes haven't changed very much from what we were predicting in the summer. We'll point out that the final numbers, middle school is 1076, so this is another large year for the middle school with 3 classes all over 350. And then at the high school in the right-hand upper corner, the 300 classes are moving into the high school at this point, 3 more than 300 students and 1 near, 284. Elementary enrollment has gone down, 1901. It's down about 25 or so students from a year ago at this time. And you can also see some comparisons if you look down at the very bottom of the chart, where we have the total number of K through 12 students in the district being housed in the district each day. Last October 1, that number was 4252, and this year it's 4233, and the loss there is the loss at the elementary level, which results when you have a class of 300 going out, and you have a kindergarten class under 300 coming in. The other things have remained stable. Pre-K last year was at 67. This year it's at 67, and that number, of course, grows to about 80 as 3-year-olds turn 3 and move in. Out of district special ed is down 1. Vocational is the same, so the total enrollment, 3454 versus 3474 last year, a loss of 20 students overall. And you remember not too long ago, we were growing at a rate of about 50 to 60 students a year, and that has leveled up. Where that will go, of course, we don't know, but that's what it is at the moment. So also, we, according to the contract and according to our policy and practice, we report to you annually about class sizes as they get larger. We do that looking at just the monthly chart here for the elementary, which you get every month, but in terms of the secondary, once each year, just after school has begun, I'm trying to find it. Here we go. We report the secondary counts. And so these are all of the secondary sections, classes, individual classes that are at 25 or more. Kind of an arbitrary number, but those are the ones that we report out. So for this year at Hingham High School, here are the numbers of classes that are at 25 or more. I'll block that so you can see. And we count them only for the core subjects. So specialist subjects are not in there, phys ed is not in there, family and consumer science is not in there, music and art and so on, and just core subjects, English, foreign language, math, science, and social studies, and you can see them by department. So for the high school, there are some at 25, 26, 27, even 28 here. Look at science here, only one class, fortunately. The science classes are supposed to be at 24 because that's the number of typical lab stations there are, and we try to keep them there. But 25, 27, and 28 and 3 physics classes. But if you look down at the bottom, you can see what's happened over time. And so this year there are 64 sections out of about 300 plus. So that varies a lot depending upon who's doing the counting. So we have a different counter this year. And when I say that counting, it really is about how you count 2 semesters, where, of course, one semester may be over 25 and maybe the other one is as well, or maybe, of course, one semester will be 25 and the same teacher would teach something different the next semester, which might be at 23. So I would pay less attention to the 332 as being full year courses, but more about the number 64. However, if you look across the years from 12, 13 on, you'll see a 64, a 56, a 66, a 42, 44, 64. They're all over the place, but percentage that's kind of in the middle there over the last number of years. So that's the one for the high school. Middle school news is better this year, even though we still have a large class there. So if you look at the middle school, this year there were 26 sections in all. That's a good number for the middle school to be down some. We still have those 6th grade classes that are hovering around the 25, 26, 27 number, because the total number is well over 300. But you can see the other sections there as well. And if you look there, now that is down fairly significantly. 26 classes out of 237 sections. Total number of sections means 11% of those classes are 25 or more. So this year as well, we have a new requirement, obligation, responsibility, whatever we want to call it, in our contract that says we will report this number to the HEA formally, as well as providing it for you. So even though June is here, we'll send you something in writing that you then I think will share with your board or whatever. That's brand new this year. So I think that's that. We can go on to communications. Right. Okay, under communications, I include, under the category of other communications, we've talked a lot in recent months about new programs or different focus areas for programs, and so I decided that as things came across my desk that related to something that people might like to know about, I would put it in your packet. And so there's information in there about elementary math workshop update. There's information about a science workshop that's coming up that Katie dealt with. And there is a Dear Community letter that Jamie actually wrote. Jamie, do you want to talk about it, dear colleague?
Sure. So there's actually two versions. The draft that went internal was the Dear Colleague letter, and the one that went external was Dear Community. But it was really around our response to the concerns that were brought forward last spring relative to the use of curriculum accommodation plans to support individual learning of individual students, and sort of our approach to address that concern and ensure that we either have students undergo eligibility determinations under either Section 504 or IDEA, or they may still sort of have an active monitoring plan, but with adult supervision from the building, tracking that and providing ongoing monitoring. They shouldn't really exist independent of the ISSIT process, so the Instructional Intervention and Support Team, which are the school-based teams that help problem solve when kids might be struggling with learning. And so we want to make sure that kids have access to those supports and services, but through monitoring and supervision. So the idea was to sort of communicate out sort of what is the DCAP, what is that language about, what is the sort of the understanding of how it fits in terms of our problem solving framework, and then as well the last piece was really for those students who might have caps, what should the parents expect. And the meetings are almost completed at the school, sort of doing case analysis, and then families who have active caps will be contacted individually by members of the school staff to have a more detailed and specific conversation about that particular child.
So these are all going to be public documents. We know that there's some interest in having more on the website, and we think we've added a lot. But at the same time, just making you aware and the public aware as well that this kind of information is on the website is a worthwhile thing to do. We're rushing here because we've got a long agenda tonight, not because these things are less important, but we do have a longer agenda.
I think that information was well received and you had minimal number of questions, but if parents do have questions, please feel free to reach out to the staff. Okay.
And also, you have the report for what was completed by facilities in September and what's anticipated for October. And these are well worth reading. The principals love to get them at our administrative council because it's really impressive what gets done in the course of a month with the really limited staff that we have. And here is an update on all the things we've done over the summer at Foster, which is impressive. Those steam traps, 120 steam traps that were replaced over the summer, and a number of other projects here that are good. And the savings, the $16,000 in reimbursement is here as well. And then October projects that are in process. All kinds of things from preventive maintenance to routine inspections to things that need to be fixed and things that need to be replaced and so on. So that's always good news. I won't display here the transition room reports, but we do get those monthly, and both of the rooms are up and running for the year. And also, somehow in here, we ended up with another copy, I think you got it earlier, of the summary for the year that has the graphs in the case of the high school transition room. Again, we have concerns about the number of students that we have that we never anticipated being part of this service, but the number of students that we have that are suffering from concussions. And some of them from sports, high school sports, some from outside school activities, and some from just kind of normal life. But Ted Hirsch, who's our intern, is working on a report on that and a summary of all of that data. He's in the process of, at this point, also meeting with Margaret and also meeting with Pat Simon, who was the nurse through last year. So we will be sharing that with you when we get that done. And is that it for communication? Yes.
Okay. And Emma Quilty, our student representative, had a soccer game tonight. We're on a Tuesday night instead of a Monday night, so she sent her regrets for not being able to come, but hopefully she will be here at the next meeting. So on to unfinished business quickly. 6.1, to act as appropriate on the proposed budget calendar for fiscal year 19. We had looked at this at our last meeting, but Aileen wasn't here, so we wanted to give her a chance to take a look at it. And this is a working draft. I connected with Dan Coughlin, who's advisory committee ACES chair, and we still have to confirm some dates with them, but he's gotten the calendar too, so if we can have a motion to.
Yeah, the January 20th date I won't be here, but
Okay.
it's always that same weekend that I'm away. And
It's always amazing to me that we can't get the whole first page on the screen. The whole first page, though, only takes us up through the end of December. It's a little bit.
So the January 20th we're still confirming with the AdCom, so I'll let you know if that stays.
And then I will make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 budget calendar as it is currently included in our packet, with the acknowledgement that there still may be some changes that may come.
Any further comments, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. And then we also have the proposed budget guiding principles for fiscal year 19 budget planning.
There's not much change here, as you would expect would be the case with principals, but every year there are nuances and changes we make typically come out of either information we know about the budget from town hall, such as the forecast or any directions that are going out to town hall employees, or they come about our discussions that we have usually at the planning session that occurred in early September this year.
Did we discuss not taking out DPH, though, the Department of Public Health?
Yeah.
John, did you want
Yeah,
to?
we did say that.
So we should leave that in?
We could leave that in, there's nothing that I know that's outstanding.
We talked a
right
bit
now.
about that, you're right.
Except for the opioid potential, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
There's no harm.
I remembered that too. I would
Yeah.
prefer that we keep it in because they seem to be the ones that pop up with things during the year that
Okay,
we have to react to.
okay, so did you get that?
So that's a number
That's going to
three,
stay
right?
in.
Yeah.
It's staying as it is, right? They're not.
It's
it
still
was the
there,
mention.
yeah.
Yeah, but, okay.
Okay. Can we,
The DPH.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget guiding principles for FY19 as presented in the packet, with the inclusion of Department of Public Health, DPH, and number 3, where it was previously removed.
do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. New business.
No business.
We have tonight our newly formed Foster School Building Committee officers, Linda Hill is the chair and Ray Estes the vice chair, to share with us some information and requests for funding of some activities to.
Tony?
Liz, you're on. Sure.
No, the light.
Liz knows what to do.
Thank you.
There we go.
Does she have
Get it all set up.
presentation?
No, I don't.
Just
Ray might. I'm just gonna,
She wants the
I'm-
slide. She
that's
wants
Tony.
the slide to show.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
we're fine.
I get it.
Keep the light on for her, and then I'll need that briefly.
Okay.
I'm Linda Hill, for all of you that don't know me. I'm the chair of the Foster School Building Committee, and Ray is the vice chair. Chris Mercer is our secretary. Tim O'Neill was gonna try to make it tonight. I think he's on his way home. Dr. Ed's on our committee with Jen Murphy and Kevin Lynch. Is that everybody? Just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we've done to this point, we had our first meeting in September. Prior to that, the SOI was submitted to the MSBA. They came out and did the tour. You probably all know this. Did the tour of Foster School in August. So at our first meeting, we really wanted to get to know each other, bring everybody up to date, and determine what we could do to move the process along so that when and if we are chosen by the MSBA in December, we can hit the ground running and go. And one of the first things we decided to do was reach out to our state representative Joe Machino and state senator Patrick O'Connor and have them out and see if they would be interested in taking a tour of the school so they could be advocates for us with MSBA. And this past Friday, they came out to Foster School, and they had reached out to the executive director of the MSBA, and he came with them along with his posse of individuals. I think he had 4 or 5 people with him, so we were a large group. Debbie Steller gave a great tour to them, focusing really not on the condition of the building because they're experts at this and they could really see what it was, but really on the director was interested in how it's affecting the delivery of the education at the school. So Dr. Steller focused on that and gave him a good overview of that. He was very complimentary about the condition of the school. He said it showed a great pride in how clean it was, even though he could see what the issues were, but in the state of the school and how well it's kept, that he was extremely pleased with that. The initial 88 submissions have been narrowed down to 44, and they will be choosing between 15 to 18 of those, and we'll probably get together in the end of November, make their decision in December. So we will hear in December whether we have been invited to be part of that. The other item we decided to focus on, which Ray is going to go over, is trying to move forward with the site. See what we can determine there, get an overview from PAR Engineering, and do some tests and studies to see the buildability, if that's even a word, on the site and where we can go from there when and if we are chosen in December. So at that point, that's about it. And then Ray's going to go over the study and the request for the funds that we need to move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's good to be back in prime time. It's been a while. Before I start, I just wanted to wish my dear friend Ed Schreier a happy birthday. 39 again. Yeah, as Linda said, it was a great opportunity on Friday to have our legislators there, and to have the MSBA join them was really terrific because, and they brought their kind of operations team with them who was familiar with us. And it was a great opportunity to really, and Debbie did a terrific job, as Linda said, kind of showing off. The key thing is how the education is affected by the facility, how the limits that the infrastructure and deteriorating mechanical systems have put on the delivery of the educational services. So that's the key, and I think Debbie did a terrific job showing that. And as Linda said, he felt pretty confident that we would hear probably around Thanksgiving, but that the formal decision would be made at I think the December 13th meeting, and they'll be choosing, he said between 15 and 20, it's probably closer to 15 than 20, based on what he said. So what we are seeking to do here, and it's something that you all have obviously talked about in your meetings over the last year or so, is doing some preliminary site investigation work to get a sense of what it is that we can do here, whether it's a renovation or a new construction on the site. Obviously, this site would be the preference if we can do something here rather than having to think about another site. If the MSBA does choose us, we'd like to be as ready as we can. That's why it's a great opportunity now that the SOI is pending. We know when the decision is coming, and we have a window of time to get this work done. So we met with PAR on site as well. The same day last Friday, we met with the engineer last Friday morning to kind of confirm a couple of areas where we'd like to have some borings done. In addition to kind of a full-blown kind of investigative report looking at current maps and updating them, making sure that they accurately show the floodplain boundaries and any other site restrictions, taking into account the climate change study that was done 2 years ago that does have sections that specifically reference the Foster site. really looking at all of the materials available on the property. And actually, Par Corporation, as you may remember, is the engineer that actually did work as a subcontractor for AI3 on the original master plan 11 years ago. So they're familiar with the property. We figured it made good sense to choose them again. They've been doing a lot of work with the town. They started out with the Fire Station Building Committee doing a little work, and actually now they've moved on and they're a subcontractor engineer on the pool study work that's being done for the South Shore Country Club. So they're a known entity in town. They've been used for a number of years, and we have a good track record working with them, so it made sense to get them out. So in addition to all of the kind of documentation that they'll be pulling together, updating, confirming, we chose two locations. One is, I'll point you to this map. This is all part of the Foster site. So if you look at the red boundary, this is all the Foster site. Obviously the school here, softball field in the back, the shed, and kind of playground area, a lot of it's hardtop. So this wooded area, I'll call it an upland, wooded upland, right? Many of you know there's some trails in there. It's steep at some points, not as steep at other points. But we thought that based on the constraints of the site with floodplain, and some of the building is in the floodplain, some of the other improvements are in the floodplain, and then if you could see this yellow line that goes through here, that's the wetland buffer, so 100-foot wetland buffer. And not that you couldn't possibly build within a wetland buffer, but you'd have to get special permission from the Conservation Commission with a number of various conditions, as we've had to do in the past. So it's something that you'd rather not do unless you absolutely have to. So other than that, it's a pretty, right here starts the wooded upland. So there's not a lot of space. It's pretty tight along here. And if you were thinking about building something while, and this is just a possibility, while the existing school was occupied, similar to what we did with the middle school, there's not a lot of space here to do it that, you know, that might not be affected by other site constraints. So we targeted this upland area because there may be a portion of it that is very usable. So probably right around here is where one boring is going to be done. It's probably about halfway up. And Par believes that it'll give a good sense of you know, what's underneath there, going down about 100 feet for the whole area of the upland. The other one is probably right around where the hardtop meets the outfield, left field there of the softball field, right near the base of the hill. And that'll kind of give a sense of the rest of the property in terms of what's underneath. And obviously this is, you know, a sense of what the soils are like, how rocky they are, you know, how possible it would be to build on them. If you were to build on them, would you need anything special similar to what we had to do with the middle school because of the nature of the soils and things of that nature. So so those physical investigations, borings are going to be done, and we've tentatively scheduled them with Debbie based on an early release schedule on November 1st. Foster actually releases at 11:30 that day. That's a Wednesday. So there's a schedule being put together for a 3-day visit by the driller, who would be the subcontractor of Par, and Par will be on site obviously to take care of those borings during that time period. The proposal, the revised proposal that you have in your packets came over just today. It reflects a revision that shows an additional boring. Initially there was only one boring discussed, and when we last met we decided to pursue a second boring in a different area in terms of not only just the wooded upland area, but also down here. So that's also included here. And we did not have the full cost of what the subcontractor driller was going to be, and that's now been included in the single price that Par is quoting for this. when we met in building committee, we took a vote to come to this body and request up to or not to exceed $30,000. At that point, we were dealing with a number that was between 20 and 30, didn't know exactly what it was going to be. So that's the vote that we took to make the request this evening, and that's what we would ask, that you support our request to move forward with this proposal using money I understand the school department had earmarked in capital for the master plan, and this kind of is in keeping with kind of that moving forward with respect to Foster at least. Happy to take any questions.
Is there a possible second location if this doesn't work?
For a school?
Yeah.
You tell me.
I think we're way too early in the process to even go there. You know, once, hopefully, if we get accepted by the MSBA, that's when we'll get into the feasibility of this site, work with architects, determine whether it's a renovation new school, what the site's gonna be. So I would certainly say at this point,
Still too early.
yeah.
I do have some ideas, but I don't make it public yet.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there are other potential possibilities, but I don't think it makes sense to even discuss that. This is where we want Foster School to be, whether it's a renovated existing Foster School or a new Foster School, if that's what the MSBA determines is necessary, and should they decide to choose us for the core program. So, I mean, this is the site we're focused on.
And I think, Carlos, that issue was touched on during the town meeting warrant review process. And but I think this work that the building committee is doing is exactly what we wanted at that time with those discussions. Let's find out what we can do on this site, because that's the optimum opportunity for us. And so I think it's great that you're starting with this, because that's going to answer a lot of questions.
Well, and in the discussions with members of the MSBA team that were with us on Friday, they were very supportive of what we were doing, thought it was a great idea, kind of applauded the fact that, you know, here we are, an applicant that has 2 prior successful projects on time and under budget with the MSBA, including the first one out of the chute 11 years ago with the new regime, that we are a town that has already supported this at town meeting, voting for feasibility money contingent upon that invitation, that the town administrator has confirmed that our finances are such that not only can we support it, but we're willing to support it. So I think we're better positioned now than perhaps we ever have been with respect to the beginning of a potential school building project.
And John, this money is money that we eventually, if we are approved by the MSBA, we can build towards. We can include this amount of money as part of the
It's part
overall
of the
expenses,
MSBA
right?
reimbursement?
Yes.
I mean, that's, the MSBA, there's the amount you can spend on site is limited. So depending on what the amount of the site is, I'm not sure that this would make it in there.
Yeah,
You know?
I don't think this would be reimbursable because we're doing it before the invitation comes. And John's right, the MSBA does cap reimbursement for site expenses at 8% of the overall project budget. Obviously, we don't know what that is yet, or even if there's going to be a project. So I would not expect that this amount of money would be reimbursable.
But we did, when we talked about the 45,000 for the master plan, that was this, we knew something would be allocated from this, and I think because of the team's savings of the 16,000 in the electrical, that all contributes to availability in the capital budget, so we're pretty comfortable. So, Ed, would you like to make a motion?
I would, with pleasure. I would make a motion, I would move to authorize the Foster School Building Committee to expend up to $30,000 from the Master Plan Capital Appropriation Fund for the purpose of evaluating the suitability of the site located at 55 Downer Avenue for a project that may involve a new building or a remodel, renovation of the existing school.
Second.
Great, any further discussion?
Just how long is it gonna take for us to get the information back from the results?
I would imagine we'd have a report within a couple of weeks, if not sooner.
I think the paperwork said 30 days that they'd have it all to us. I mean, don't hold me to it, but I think that's what they said.
Yeah, I mean, I think since we're scheduling it now about 3-4 weeks in advance, they'll be using this time in the interim to do a lot of the investigative work with documentation and plans and whatnot, and that what'll be left will just be the physical work on site. So I would imagine it'd be a couple weeks.
And the reason why we scheduled it so far out is we really tried to get it to on an early release date because we didn't want to have to do it on weekends and after hours because they charge time and a half. So we really worked around the schedule of Foster School so we could get billed at the regular rate, not the extra rate, to keep the price down.
And I would also just add that Linda and I stopped by Town Hall after that meeting with the engineer Friday. We popped our heads into the Conservation Commission and left word for the agent and we'll follow up, and also the building department, just to make sure there's nothing that they'd like to see in terms of approvals or permitting. We did meet out there with Jeff Hanrahan, the tree warden from DPW. We scheduled that so he could come up and identify the site and talk about if there was any necessity to remove any trees, and there won't be, which is great. And he approved the site and how PAR proposed accessing it, and so I think we're in good shape with that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so, anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good work, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.2, to receive the East School Improvement Plan for 2017-2018 and an update on the 2016-2017 plan progress. And we have Tony Keaty, principal of East School, and his team to share with us.
1 second, so have a second.
We should say as well that all of the building committee meetings are posted and public meetings, and people are welcome. And let you know when the report's going to be presented, so people might want to you want the mics, Tony?
Excuse me? No, be fine. Thank you, though. So good evening. My name is Tony Keaty. I'm the principal of East Elementary School. I'm proud to say it's my 9th year at East. I was fortunate enough to be the first principal at East of the new East Elementary School. Becky Case is with me. She's the assistant principal, and a lot of her hard work is also into our improvement plan. So we'll start with a really quick update from last year's plan. So we typically do focus a lot on our academics, literacy, and math typically. So what we're looking for is to increase achievement across the board. And with the school improvement plan, all the action steps are basically completed, but really what we're waiting for now at this point is the release of the MCAS data for us to kind of go over it, to kind of fully realize how much progress we've made. We do review the DIBELS assessment. We do that every year. We start off the year, our literacy team will go through and we assess all of the kids in the primary grades to kind of get an understanding of how much progress, where they come in from the summertime, and kind of give us a starting point. So this year we've already done the DIBELS assessment for the start. We've had our data meetings and we're going to continue to meet, and we have all of the MCAS data in place. We'll meet again. So that's an ongoing thing. But once again, the action steps have been completed. We're just going to work forward when we get the data to crunch. So last year, goal 3 and 4, we are continuing once again. Both of those goals are in progress. With goal number 3, we are always looking to continue to build our working relationship with our parents and families. Last year, one of the things that we did is we kind of piloted a book discussion group with our parents. We offered the book The Pressured Child by Dr. Michael Thompson. He was one of our guest speakers last year. So based on the feedback we got from parents, we chose one of his books. We had about 10 parents and several staff who read the book. We came in, we had a great book discussion group based on the reading. A lot of parents did find the discussion group to be helpful in kind of understanding the environment that their children are kind of dealing with. This year, we also did try a different format for our curriculum nights. That was also based on the feedback we got from parents. So this year what we did was, at every grade level, the students actually participated in the curriculum night presentations. In some cases, 4th grade actually did the presentations themselves. The teachers prepped them, they present to their parents what it is that they study and learn throughout the year. In some cases in the younger grades, those students led their parents on a scavenger hunt through the classroom to help them understand sort of their daily routine, what it is that they do during the day. So that was a great success. So we're going to continue to kind of refine that format going forward.
Tony,
Yes.
I heard phenomenal reports from the parents in my neighborhood about the curriculum night and
Oh,
having
good.
their kids involved. So kudos to you for doing that, but from across multiple grades, the parents were thrilled. So.
That is great to hear. Kudos to the staff. The teachers put a lot of hard work in preparing the students, making sure that they're ready for the night. I will say the one thing that we will consider going forward is next year we're probably going to move our curriculum night to an earlier start. We start with our traditional 7 o'clock time for our younger students. It's kind of late, so next year we'll move it forward to an earlier start time, just to accommodate for our younger students. With goal number 4, expanding our enrichment activities. This has been an ongoing discussion with our PTO, trying to find ways for us to provide additional learning opportunities that kind of supplement the curriculum. So one of the things that we talked about was like a science fair kind of activity. And I think what we're going to do is, going forward, having talking to some of the staff, we're going to try to create in the building a makerspace. So an opportunity for kids to take a random assortment of objects, give them some criteria, a goal, kind of like a guiding process, and then just create, kind of some open-ended. What it does is foster sort of that creativity, it fosters sort of that sharing. It's not typically part of our regular curriculum, but there are a lot of pieces from our science and math and even from literacy that we'll be able to weave into that kind of thing. So it's once again an ongoing process for us. So we'll move forward to this year's school improvement plan. You have kind of the details and the copies, but once again, our first and second goal really is about working on literacy and math on the academics. When we do these goals, we do think about not only MCAS, we use DIBELS, and we're always looking to try to find ways to gather data information that's going to help us drive instruction. So for example, this year, one of the things that we're doing is we're piloting STAR 360 as a formative assessment tool. It's used for assessing reading and math. It seems to, the initial reports that we're getting from it does provide us with a little bit more detail about specific areas of need that we're seeing with our students. We make them, the reports that come from STAR 360, a part of our regular data meetings that we do throughout the year. So we'll meet with every grade level probably 3 or 4 times a year, about every 9 weeks or so, to go over the data, teacher input, refine our instructional groups. So once again, this is kind of an ongoing thing throughout the year. Our measurement for how we achieve our goals is somewhat varied. Certainly we want to use the data that we get from MCAS, but we always have to remember that MCAS is a formative assessment. It's sort of like an end of the road piece. We really want to try and make sure that we're using formative assessments sort of in the process to drive instruction that meets the needs of the kids that are in front of us. So a lot of data that we use to help us drive it is actually individual teacher feedback about individual students, because we do have a really strong curriculum. We do have a really well thought out curriculum mapping done by our department heads. So more often than not, what we're seeing is not sort of trends within the curriculum, but really individual students with individual needs. So that's also part of our process for determining, how well we're doing. So going forward to our, once again, our third goal is once again taking from last year. So we're going to build upon some of the things that we did from last year's school improvement plan, take information that we got from our focus groups that we do every year, and we also did our parent guardian survey this year. So we took all the information and we pulled out some of these things which we want to try and get done this year. So we're going to continue the parent guardian book group, but really we're going to, last year we focused more on the social emotional part. This year the feedback we got from parents really is to help them deal with the struggles of raising kids in a digital age. So that's why one of the first books that we're going to read is Disconnected and How to Reconnect with Our Digitally Distracted Kids. I did research, well-regarded book. We're going to make it available to the parents. We will schedule 2 to 3 meetings, whatever that parents feel we can accommodate their needs. We're going to try to make a morning meeting available and an evening meeting available. And then we'll also, based on some of the other additional feedback we get from those initial groups, we'll choose probably 2 more books throughout the year. So the goal really is to have a total of 3 of these book groups throughout the year. This year we're also piloting a partnership with the Hingham Rec Department for the After School Enrichment Program. Once again, feedback we got from parents is that when the PTO was overseeing our enrichment program, sometimes it was difficult to predict what classes would be available, what kind of offerings we would have. Sometimes we would offer a class, no student would sign up for it because of lack of interest. So really what we were able to do is one of our parents, Stephen Henderson, she kind of made a connection to the rec department with an established program that they have an understanding of what is it that's going to attract kids. So we're piloting that program as we speak. So that just started this year. So far, a lot of the feedback we got so far has been pretty positive. So we're very excited to kind of see how that pilot works out. The other thing we're going to do is Career Week. Later in spring of 2018, we're going to create an opportunity for parents of a wide variety of careers to come in and present to the students. And what we'll do is we'll have the students sign up for probably 2 or 3 careers that interest them. And we'll set up sort of information sessions, and kids can go and hear about the variety of different careers that are out there. So we're kind of excited. It's the first time we've sort of done something like that. And we are ongoing to work with the Hingham Police Department and Fire Department as we run sort of our drills and practices. So for example, this Friday we're going to run our bus evacuation drill. Every year the Hingham Police Department comes out. We're going to invite the Hingham Fire Department to come out and join us, sort of be a part of how we run the drill so we can kind of better refine that. Hingham Police Department's going to come to our staff meeting. Once again, review some of the security procedures that we do in place. So that's an ongoing thing. We are trying to, once again, continue to strengthen that. And one of the other things we're going to try and do is make connections for guest speakers from the community and from our families to come in and present on certain curriculum areas that can connect the learning that happens in the classroom with real life experience. So we're going to put an invitation out there to parents with a range of topics that are presented in the various curriculum areas and ask if anybody has expertise who would be willing to come in and talk to one of our students. In the past, we've had, for example, we have a parent whose career is revolving around renewable energy. So he came in and did a great presentation to our 4th graders because magnets and electricity is part of their curriculum. So we're going to try and kind of build that out. And then our 4th, this is part of our goal number 4, and this is probably the most exciting part of the project. So this is our vertical community project. I really have to give all the credit for this project to Becky Case. She is the one who kind of thought it up, created it, and has been driving it. So really what it is, it's a year-long project. We have taken the entire school and we've divided them into crews. And they go with the acronym Community of Respectful Explorers Working Together. Each crew has about 10 to 15 students that meet on the early release day on the first Wednesday of the month. They meet with a staff person. In some cases we've taken 2 staff people to work together. The kickoff event was a play that Becky orchestrated involving the entire school of Horton Hears a Who. And the particular focus of the message of the book, which is a person's a person no matter how small. Kids had a blast. It was an awesome kind of way to start this project. So we did that on one of our all-school meetings. The next Wednesday is when we actually had our first crew meeting. We divided all the kids up, and they're working on a year-long project that asks them to answer that essential question, which is how can we create a community so that everyone participates in the community to make a difference. The end result will be a clover taken from the book, the idea of a clover, that kind of focuses on that essential question. What the clover looks like is really kind of up to each individual crew. There really is no set format. It's really very open-ended. So it can really be anything. And really, once again, the goal, though, is to answer the essential question. And the piece which I think is kind of most exciting from my perspective is our goal is the crew will stay together for their entire time at each school. So as our 5th graders move out, they'll be replaced with incoming kindergartners, but the crew will stay together with the same teacher, same staff person, so that regardless of what grade they're in, they sort of have like a group that they're connected with, and they have a staff person that they are connected with as well throughout their entire 6 years. So it's really exciting. Kudos to Becky. The play was really well regarded. We had a great time, and we do have a picture of our cast. There they are. Horton is actually our 4th grade teacher, Brian DeMarco. So he played Horton, and he did an impressive job. And Leslie Flanagan was our narrator. And we had a number of our kids who were the main members of the cast, but every grade level had a role in the play. So once again, it was a great event. So that is our e-school improvement plan. Any questions?
I heard great things. I live in your district.
Yes.
So I heard really exciting things about this program too. So you guys are doing a really excellent job at the bus stop. I hear from the parents that they're excited about what's happening at East School. So I was excited to hear your report tonight and be able to share that with all of you. So
Thank you, it's nice to hear.
Anybody else?
I just want to know, Tony, these crews have like kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders all together? in
Yes,
one?
K through
That's very
5,
cool.
a vertical team.
That's really cool.
Sure. Once again, that was kind of Becky's, she's the one who kind of brainstormed that process, worked with Kathy Ryan, our adjustment counselor, to kind of put together the crews. We actually, one of the things that surprised some of our parents is that we've put siblings in the same crew because they typically don't have a chance to interact throughout the school day. So once a month, they actually kind of will be together on the crew. So far, some of the feedback we got from parents is positive, right, Becky?
I saw Becky at CVS last Sunday morning, developing the pictures that would play.
I was subbing that day, the day
Oh, yeah.
that your school subbing, and the play was tremendous, and it's so exciting. It is a great project.
Becky, where did the idea come from?
I don't even know. Different conversations, talking about ways we can teach skills in in the social emotional area, talking to the adjustment counselor. It is several conversations that just kind of pulled it all together. I did a group on object-based learning last year, so some of the staff was already familiar with that, and so I wanted to incorporate that as well. It's great.
How do the teachers like it?
Some were skeptical. However, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback now that it's started. We try to put in professional development. I have a committee. I have a lot of teachers that join the committee to help it move forward and work on the kinks. I've designed the lesson plans so that the teachers don't have to take on another thing, and the committee will be helping me with the lesson plans going forward.
Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Okay, next, 7.3, to receive the GPA update report and HTSS Task Force on Social Emotional Survey information and schedule. So Heather Rodriguez, our Director of Counseling, is going to report on these two activities. So,
And we did forget to tell people that the mic is lost
Oh, yeah.
somewhere. It's lost. And so if people would like to speak, certainly do so, but you need to come up to use this mic because I don't think we caught what Becky had to say and Linda.
or maybe,
and so.
Michelle, you can share your mic at the end there. So, okay.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. So tonight we have most of our GPA committee with us, so I just want to point them out in the audience. We have Carol Falvey, Kathleen Seavery, Catherine Forbes, Mike Grasso, Mal Noonan, and obviously Dr. Gerard McCann is no longer with us, and Miss Scowell is heading up financial aid night over at the high school tonight. So, a lot going on. I'll give a little brief history just because I don't want to rehash everything that has already happened since this is just an update. But when we changed from a 6.0 to a 4.0 GPA scale at the high school, we kept the existing structure where it was normed on the honors level with the 4.0. And then it kind of came to light that that's different than a lot of other schools using a 4.0 scale normed on the college prep level. And so we investigated, is that something that we should move to? Is that something that would have an impact, either positively, negatively, on college admissions, and should we look into that? So we formed a committee, and we did some hard work and gathered a lot of data, and we are in the second year of a 2-year transition process at this point where the official change for the new GPA, that it's going to be centered on the college prep level, is going to take effect with the current juniors, so the class of 2019. So we had 2 years before the official transition. of students who had already received a GPA for a couple of years under the old system, and we didn't want to midstream change their GPA because about 50% of the GPAs go up and about 50% go down. So we didn't think it was fair to all of a sudden to that 50% that goes down say, sorry, your GPA seemed like it was something and now it's different. But we also wanted to give students whose GPA went up under the new system the chance to kind of preview that system, and if there's a higher GPA that can be put on a transcript that would benefit them in the admissions process, we didn't want to take that benefit away from them. So we allowed them to report either both the old and new system or just the old system if that didn't benefit them. So we wanted to make sure in the college admissions process that there was no negative impact or find if there was a positive impact of moving to this new system. So essentially we were seeing, is there a discernible impact on changing our GPA system before we fully committed. So after we compared the admissions data from last year, which is the class of 2017, with the historical data that we had throughout years, and usually that's from tracking through Naviance, so that began in 2003. Basically, we're at a point where it's clear that we don't have enough data from just one season to tell, did the GPA itself make an impact on college admissions? We definitely need to study that more, and that's something that the committee recommended and that we made sure that we will build into what we do going forward to see if there are any trends. We saw a small bump in admissions, but it's hard to tell whether that's attributable to the change in GPA. During the same year, the SAT changed, and we saw one of the strongest classes with the highest GPAs on record, as highest average GPA that we've ever had, the highest average SAT score that we've ever had, the highest ACT score that we've ever had. So it's hard to tell, is that a result of just a very strong class, or is that coupled with the GPA, or because of the GPA? And it's kind of hard with just 1 year's worth of data to tease that out. So we will see in the future if that is something that made the difference. We definitely want to just have a couple key points to make sure that we know that GPA is a number in and of itself, and it really is a testament to the resources of the Hingham public schools and the power of our curriculum, the strength of our curriculum, and the quality, the talented faculty, and the dedication of the kids, which factors into the college admissions process, not just the GPA number. What a lot of colleges look at is the strength of a student's curriculum, what is available to them, and how did they maximize what was given to them. It's hard to tell. There is no data or research kind of that exists out there in the world that tracks which colleges use GPA as kind of the primary or a single factor in merit and admissions decisions. So merit aid is money, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but money that a school may give to a student for merit purposes, so not financial need based, but just to attract them to come to their school. And then the colleges are kind of at the selective colleges for the most part are selecting and assessing the high school curriculum, and if an applicant has challenged themselves and maximized that curriculum. And I think we can attribute the increased acceptances at selective colleges. If we say it's just part of the GPA scale at this point, it kind of de-emphasizes the hard work and talent that the specific students had as well. So we don't want to hang everything on the GPA, but it absolutely is a factor. So with merit money, historically, we've never tracked whether students were receiving any merit money, receiving any merit aid. And so we're going to try our best to begin to do that. But what we're not sure is how statistically significant or how reliable that data can be, because we have to rely on self-reports. So we do, at the end of the admissions year, we do a survey to seniors, and college admissions decisions are self-reports as well. Some colleges do notify us directly, but most of the time we're relying on the student to tell us whether they were accepted, not waitlisted, deferred to each college. So we are in that survey going to add in, were you the recipient of any merit money at that college? But again, some students will share that, some students won't. It may depend on each college, so we will gather information, but I don't know if we can quite call it data or manipulate it like data. And we'll kind of collect what we have and see how it informs us, and if we can draw any conclusions based on that, or if it's just information that's kind of good to have, but it's anecdotal and may not be able to make much meaning out of it.
One of the things you might want to consider asking on the merit money is, if they did receive it, do they know the specific criteria as to why?
Right.
Because that can be very distinctive of a school, that they may just grant it, or it may be because you've done something specific, whether it's met a grade point average, or been an athlete, or applied for a specific program. But it may just show up and they don't specifically say why. So.
Right, and that's the difficulty with merit money. It is pretty amorphous. So it depends on school to school what the criteria is. At that school, it could change year to year, depending on what the applicant pool looks like. They could be looking for violinists that year. They could be looking for soccer goalies the next year. They could be looking for all sorts of things. It's not even consistent whether it's based on GPA and test scores. Oftentimes there is kind of a minimum threshold, but that's just one factor and that's not the whole thing. So yeah, it's very important to kind of know what that is. And that's why I think it will be a bear to kind of gather all of that data, because it's not consistent, and that's the difficulty.
Even over time, if we know there are certain schools that are just, you never know, you might get it. That could be a valuable tool for students to not, if they hadn't considered that school, but they're seeing a trend of Hingham students who are getting some money. Oh, maybe I'll apply there because that's going to help my effort of my family situation.
Right, and even Catherine had found, if you're at one school dependent of a veteran, you get some merit money. And other schools, it's if you're the dependent of a veteran who's been in a specific war, or, so it changes. But the more information we can gather, at least we'll have information and then be able to share that as we can. Trying to think. And merit is usually, it's the most competitive aspect of a school's financial packages. They are trying to entice students to come to their school. So typically it is students that are higher up in the applicant pool, or who have a special talent or something that is a need that they're looking to fill. So it is a little bit unpredictable, but good to gather information, because right now we don't really have any. So that's most of what we have to report. We're not very far. We're on a wait and see basis, and we'll keep analyzing data and see where we get in the future. But we know that it didn't have any negative impact, which is excellent and really good.
Before we take comments, does anybody else from the committee want to add anything of your thoughts on the process, or?
I thought it was
Do you mind going to?
It was a fascinating process. It was amazing to find how difficult it is to get the universities and the colleges to share information with us. To be straightforward and just say, this is how we calculate anything. There are so many variables. But I think it's a valiant effort on our part to try and at least gather this anecdotal data going forward. Because merit speaks to all of us, to all parents. The more we can get, the better we are, or the better off we are. But it's been an amazing process, and I think we all learned a lot about it, about the process of college applications. And I just want to thank you for diving in with both feet, and we didn't always all see eye to eye on the information. So it was a good group process, and I'm glad we've gone in the direction that we did go.
Absolutely.
Thank you. This report is on the website. We should say it has been there a while for people at home.
I was just curious about the survey, so is that sent via email to the students? And when is it sent out, and how many actually take the survey?
That's a very good question. So this is a senior survey. It's done after May 1st because that's the universal reply date for students to tell colleges what college they are intending to enroll in. So that's when we know what college students have chosen, and all admissions decisions are definitely in by that time, with the exception of a few kids still on wait lists at certain colleges and universities. So that is given to the students. It is through our Naviance program, which is web-based. We do make it a senior graduation obligation requirement so that they cannot get their cap and gown, or they, because otherwise it would just hang out in cyberspace and half of them would never fill it out. And we need that data to just have good data about college admissions to help all future Hingham students in the college selection process. So that is part of what we do, and we do not impose that and say, sorry, you can't graduate because you didn't fill out a survey. We chase them down, and we have Chromebooks down in the counseling office, and we, every time we're running in the hallway saying, hey, haven't seen your survey yet, come on down, make an appointment with me. So we're making sure that they complete it, and that's how we get the information.
I assume there's also, yes, an area where there's kids that don't go on to a...
Yes, we provide them with the Chromebooks or
But is that
with our
information also
computers.
tracked? Whether
They
they
don't go
decide to
on to
go abroad for a year, they're not going?
Oh, yes.
Or
Yep.
they're just working, or...
Yep, you will actually, in
Or
December,
they-
when I do the college testing and placement report, that's part of the information that I report on at that point. So that'll be December 4th, I feel like, this year? 4th or 5th, maybe?
Well, the survey is really a future plan.
Yes, the survey, yes, it's building onto an existing senior survey that we have. So we're gonna add elements for when we ask what was the admission decision at each specific school, were you awarded merit money, and, tack on a couple of questions about that at that point. Yep.
So Heather, overall, you have not received any negative feedback or
Nope.
even positive from the parents?
Right, everything has been positive. Kathy Savory did a phenomenal job last year and this year of communicating to all the colleges. We have the school profile, kind of outlines what our process has been, because our fear in the beginning was that we would confuse people by what we were doing, so we worked really hard to clarify with them kind of our interim plan, what the plan is going forward. Kathy, every single college rep that comes into our building to meet with students, Kathy meets with as well, and she has explained in person what we are doing, asked them what the impact is, and all of the colleges that do not come into our building, we have access to our admission rep contacts through Naviance, and so she's sent several communications over the past few years, just kind of outlining what that process is, so kudos to her for communicating with everyone, yep.
Heather, the scattergrams in Naviance,
Yes.
how are those gonna be affected?
Okay,
going
so a scattergram in Naviance is a graph with the data points of students' GPA and their test scores and what the average accepted Hingham, or kind of what the admissions outcome is for each student. It's de-identified information, so it's just data points, it's not kids' names.
But only Hingham students, right?
Hingham students, because every high school is slightly different, we want to know, our own kids compared to our own kids and see a trend. Very often, colleges will come in and say, our average student has, is a B average with this test score. And we can say, no, you're taking our C students and they've been very successful at your school, and so, it may differ from the national averages. So it's good to have that information. You can compare apples to apples, so to speak. So we do have the ability, we have for the past 2 years run the GPAs on both systems for all of the students in those classes. So once this year's class graduates, we'll be able to load that data into Naviance on the new GPA system and kind of make it to apples on the scattergrams. So we're working with Naviance to make that kind of a smooth transition, but that is where we will have students rely on meetings with their counselors so that we can give them a little more historical data and context, and if they're looking to define what's a reach school for me or a target school or a safety, we will have that kind of historical knowledge. In college admissions, I feel like it's dog years. Like, the admissions data past really 3 or 4 years isn't that valid or useful anymore because admissions changes so quickly. So having only 2 years of data, I say only, but it's actually not that much different than what's useful already. So right now I think we have the scattergrams for 4 years, so we'll only have 2 years worth of data. But after next year's class, then we'll have 3, and then we'll be back to normal pretty quickly. So next year might be a little bit of more information gathering, but the scattergrams will be able to reflect the new system with good data, yeah.
It's very helpful.
Yeah, it is. I know, that's the one thing we were a little scared about. But it sounds like it will work out.
Can you just talk about how the counselor Common App form?
Yes.
And the HHS GPA that is on that form just for this year?
Right.
Students are, HHS is only on that form reporting the HHS GPA, so if a student has 2 GPAs on their transcript, they need to advocate for that higher GPA.
Right. So, okay, the question...
They need to bring that up themselves.
Yes, is on the Common Application, which is an application that most schools in the country use as one kind of application that you can send to multiple schools, so you're not doing individual applications for each school. That forces students to complete their application and counselors to use a specific form that goes with their transcript to colleges. And so, because some students may be reporting 2 GPAs, but that form only has a space for 1 GPA, we kind of had to figure out what are we going to do about that. So on our school profile, which is a document, it's on the counseling website. I sent it out to all senior parents by email. We have copies of it in the office. It kind of delineates what is happening with our GPA, and it outlines that students may be choosing to report 2 GPAs. That will appear on our official transcript, so those GPAs are in fact both official and given by the school. On the Common App form, however, students will be reporting their highest GPA because they can only report 1, and counselors have to report only the current official Hingham High School GPA, which is the old GPA, because for 50% of the students, the GPA goes down, and so we didn't want to report the new one and disadvantage those kids, but the kids that their GPA goes up, they are getting the official transcript, and we can write a statement in their recommendation that describes that they will be using 2 GPAs. They are both perfectly official, and they are to be the basis for the admissions. So they're not misrepresenting themselves by putting the highest GPA on their common application. We have instructed them to do that, and we are specifically informing every college that we are reporting the Hingham High School GPA. That.
That's just for this year.
And that was for last year and for this year. Yep, and then it's a moot point because it's just the new GPA moving forward. Yep.
We might want to have the counselors in the recommendations for those using the 2 GPAs. Specifically state that they would like the university or college to use the MDHE GPA when considering merit.
Okay.
It might just be something they should state.
We have a statement, right, but we can add that for merit scholarships. Absolutely. Yep. Other questions?
Okay, I had one comment on the comparison of Ivy acceptances.
Yes.
That I hope on December 4th, when we look at the comparison, that we start looking at highly selective schools and not just Ivies, because the Ivies themselves over recent history are even higher and higher, even more selective, and that don't want that to reflect that our students aren't as strong,
Right.
it's just that much harder to get accepted in an Ivy. But our students are getting accepted at more and more very highly selective schools across the country and the world.
Right.
And, which is wonderful. And so, I don't want the misperception of, because we don't have as many Ivy acceptances,
Right, and
that our kids aren't.
right, that the Ivy
competing
League
with-
is be all end all
Yeah.
of college education, and it absolutely is not. And the only reason why we did include that in the full committee report is that was just such a topic of discussion
Yes.
that we knew we needed to address it. So
Yeah.
we kind of put that in the report specifically, but we also have data for every range of colleges. And I know if you look on the superintendent's website, there is a college acceptance kind of across the board according to the Barron's categories of selectivity. The CEB college placement report that I do in December also has every single college that students apply to and has that data as well. So yes, we do not by any means want to focus just on Ivy League because nationwide the acceptance percentages are in the single digits, and we're actually pretty comparable over the past decade that we have historical data for with acceptances. On some schools we're a little bit better, on other schools we're not as great, but we're right in the national averages with Ivy League. But yes, we absolutely don't want to focus on them specifically because that's just a few kids. And we are concerned about every single one of our students, yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thank you. Great.
All right, before I leave, I just want to thank the committee, so thank you, Mal, for beating me to that. But I want to thank the committee for all of your hard work and dedication because we definitely had really great, robust discussions, and we had a mix of people from a mix of different perspectives and kids with different ages and graduating classes, and so it was really good. I think it informed the process quite a bit, so kudos for all of our hard work.
Great, and thank you for having a task force with multiple stakeholders that always results in the best solutions, so on to
Right.
social
Topic
emotional
number 2.
task force, which is very exciting, and I really wanted this shared because it takes a lot of steps to get positive work done, and so please share all these magical steps that will get us to where we're gonna go. It's slow but sure, but it's good work. So.
All right, so taking focus off of the end point of college and what our schools prepare our fabulous students for, and putting it onto the social emotional learning for students K through 12 throughout our district. Historical information is there. We formed a task force. HTSS is the Hingham Tiered System of Support, and our task force formed last year. What we did is we made it up of school staff and parents, and we even have a couple of high school kids representing the high school, and parent volunteers were kind of chosen, much like the GPA committee, with a bunch of different roles that are represented throughout the community who had some sort of different viewpoint, who could give us kind of a robust view of the process. So we have medical professionals, social workers, people who are connected to DCF, the Boy Scouts, athletes. So we kind of picked our task force specifically to give us a broad range of people so that we could get those perspectives and make sure that we were taking that all into account. We have a group of parent ambassadors that were trained this summer so they can serve as informed members of the community and parents and resources for parents to kind of look back to, who really know what's going on and can speak intelligently about the whole process should parents feel that they don't want to reach out to members of the school community but want to hear kind of parent to parent what's going on. So we thank all of them for their efforts. We also, through a generous grant from the HEF, they were able to help us partner with Dr. Jennifer Green, who's a professor of special education at BU. She's also a clinical child psychologist, and she has helped us do the part that we are kind of about to embark on right now, is develop surveys for our students and staff and for our parents to assess the social emotional needs of the students and our community. So what we need to do is find out first what our needs are with good, robust data points instead of just kind of anecdotal, what do we feel like we're seeing at school, so that we can have that data analyzed and results come out and actually implement good targeted intensive programs, K through 12, for our students to help them along in their social emotional learning. So the timeline is the task force met throughout last spring and again this fall, and we kind of went over the surveys and discussed the merits at each level. And so the surveys are about to be ready, and so throughout the month of November, each school will have a site-based team who will help determine how those surveys are going to be given to the students, because every student will take them. There's obviously, we have an opt-out process if you don't want your child to participate, and surveys will be available in every single building. So parents, if you want to preview the surveys before your child takes them, you can make an appointment, go on into your school, kind of grab the survey, take a peek at it, and see what it's all about. So the surveying will be going on in schools through the month of November. The students who will be surveyed, K through 3, generally aren't great survey takers for a number of reasons. Some of them don't really have a great ability to read quite yet, so we don't get the best reliable data from those kids on a survey. So it will be grades 4 and 5 at the elementary level, and then all students in the middle school and high school. And then all parents, we encourage to take the survey, and that's where our parent ambassadors will step in, and they will be kind of helping us out with social media campaign and getting the word started for all students too. We'd love to have 100% completion of all parent surveys, and then staff will be surveyed as well. One important thing for parents to know is if you have multiple children, you can take the survey multiple times with that individual child in mind. Then once we get all the survey information, the BU team will kind of crunch the numbers and come up with the data, and we'll present to each stakeholding group. So the community will have presentations, each school will have presentations, the staff will have presentations, and we will really get a robust kind of data points about what our needs are. Then this spring, we'll take that information, find some targeted interventions that we have for our students who need it, and pilot some of those instruments and programs, and then we hope to have full implementation next fall throughout the school year. So that's a broad overview, but we're really excited about this work, and we really hope that we can get good, consistent, throughout the district K through 12 programming in place. We're really excited about the work. I think it'll be very valuable and informative. So
great. Thank you. Anybody have questions?
So they're taken digitally. How long is the survey?
It depends on the grade level. We're probably about 15-20 minutes at the elementary rate, and maybe 25 to 30 at the high school and middle school level. High school has done the youth risk behavior survey, which is much longer. It's about a whole class period, so about between 45 and 55 minutes. So this is a little bit shorter than that. And that was definitely part of our discussions, is knowing that we have, finite attention spans for certain grade levels, and making sure that they don't kind of skew data because they're getting exhausted, or that it's an appropriate length and kind of gets at the meat of what we're trying to understand, and is appropriate length for them. Does that help?
And when will the surveys be made available for parents to view?
Probably last week of October, right?
23rd.
23rd. Fabulous. Yep. Anything else?
Well, we've been hearing a lot about this, so we'll continue to have updates
yes.
On this, because it's a very important initiative for everyone in the district.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. 7.4, to receive an end of cycle update of the superintendent's 2016-2017 goals. This is all part of the superintendent's evaluation process that we are going through step by step in different meetings. So Dr. Gallo?
And actually, this goal-setting process is one that all educators now go through as part of the educator evaluation process, the self-assessment and thank you, and goal-setting. I struggle with what to do with this form because it's very dense, and there's a lot written there. I started out trying to make slides, and there were going to be probably 42 slides in order to get it all on. So we'll just walk through it. I will put it up here. I can certainly put it on the website, if that's going to be helpful to anyone who wants to read it, but it really is dense. On the front, I did add there that my evaluation cycle is not the school year. It goes from approximately 1st of November through this time of year, through the end of October. So in April, I gave you a mid-year update, and that's in the green print. And then when I updated it again in the last week or so, I put that print in blue. And then I put the assessment rating, at least from my perspective, my self-assessment, in black beneath each goal. So there are 5 goals here. The first one had to do with special populations, mostly special education populations, and you can see the bullet points there, meeting individually with some parents, discussing new programs and emerging practices, creating forums for Hingham Public School staff to express concerns and ideas, and the whole spirit of collaboration and the culture of respect is in there as well. And then in particular there was the Walker, what we've called fondly the Walker report, and the response to that report as part of it. So I reported out a fair amount of what had happened up through perhaps the end of April, just after April vacation, and then the blue, I'll focus on the additional things, and that started with in the summer, the Walker report response was presented. That report and the response and the PowerPoint all are on the website under student services. At the start of the school year, this just started, we had several new programs in place. We have added staff, as was suggested by both faculty and parents, particularly in the areas of speech and language services, where we had a high caseload there, and in particular about behavioral services. And we added some additional days of, in hours of ABA specialist time. As well, we have a full day option for a very small number of children, 4-year-olds who need a full day for the preschool, and that has been funded by ADA funds. We have a small group of children who are in the, I think they're in the 3rd grade this year over at Foster, and we've explored hiring a half-time teacher for that small group and funding that through some savings in para hours. It's a unique group of children. That's what happened with those children in the 2nd grade, and we thought it was worth expanding into the 3rd grade. So that is in place. And let's see, what was the 3rd group that we added? Oh, I guess it was the ABA and the speech therapist. So we made some progress there, and certainly the ideas came both from the teacher side and also from parents. The updated procedural manual is in place, and we put that on the website. Training has occurred there, not just among the special education staff, but also for the entire leadership team. And that happened at our last leadership team meeting, and that was 35 people, principals, assistant principals, directors, resource teachers, and some other individuals that are members of our leadership team. We thought that was very worthwhile. And other documentation will be on the website that is being put on the website that's been produced, particularly to be shared at that level on the website or through CPAC meetings, or information that people suggested or thought would be helpful. I do think that the changes we've made in the website are wonderful, and lots more information to help people become more aware of what the program offers, and also to be informed as to what options there are when there are options, and often there are among some different choices and priorities that parents may have. So this has been certainly a challenging year in terms of special ed. That's not a secret to anyone. I think we've made a lot of progress. We seem to have a good model in place. I compliment the folks in CPAC and Kate is here tonight. The idea of coming up with that workflow seemed to be a good way to channel communication so that people had a place to put things that they were concerned about, knowing that we would work on those kinds of things and get back to them from time to time. I think that's been a great benefit, and obviously this is a goal that's not going to go away, like so many goals. I think all but 2 of the goals here are things that will just continue because that's the nature of the goal. So we're happy with what's happened there. That doesn't mean we think the work is complete. It doesn't mean we think that we're problem-less, but we've made a lot of progress, and we're pleased, and we hope that the parents who have concerns and issues can see some improvement as well. Negotiations. This is a year. Last year was actually the year that all 6 of our bargaining units negotiate with the school committee salary negotiation subcommittee, and so this goal really is a goal that was in common with John, and opportunity to help support the negotiating team. And while John and I and Jamie all serve on the negotiating team, the decision-making is always in the hands of the school committee. So we got slowed down at the beginning because of an illness among our team membership, and slowed down a bit. So we did settle with the HEA right at the start of school. Lots of steps have to follow the handshake, however, because we have to produce a written memorandum of agreement. In addition to that, information has to be shared. The document has to be ratified by both sides, and that happened not too many weeks ago. Both the HEA and President of the HEA is here, June Gustafson, can wave, and the school committee needed to ratify. That happened at the end of September. And now we're moving on with the other units, the other 5 units, but we're in a good place. And in fact, I listed here where we are with respect to every unit. We have a signed MOA with the food service workers, and the next step there is ratification, so that's pending. And the school committee in executive session tonight will hear about that progress and what's next. We have a pending MOA with the Administrators Association, which means it's pending a written document. We're excited about that as well. Discussions are ongoing with the custodian and maintenance, that's 1 unit, worker unit. Discussions have occurred, and another is week after next, I believe there's another, next week there's another negotiation there. We've had an initial meeting with our paraprofessional unit, which is Unit B of the HEA, and the bus drivers we've connected with, but have deferred actually beginning that bargaining. So we're in a good place, and all of the things that are ratified are pending. Our 3-year contracts, 3-year agreements, and all of them are within the FY18 budget allowance that we have in this year's budget for collective bargaining. And so we think we've made excellent progress despite an unavoidable delay, but it's certainly not for as a result of anyone's lack of effort or any other concern like that. Leadership transitions, we had a few more transitions than we anticipated when we wrote the goal. Certainly there are always transitions, but we had more this year. So I'll go right down to where we were. We picked this up in terms of the blueprint here, right about the time that Rick Swanson was being appointed as the principalship at the high school. And around the same time, Charlene Fabrizio, who's the new assistant principal at Plymouth River, was being appointed. And then Rick interviewed for his new assistant principal, Colin Shattuck, was put in place in July. And both of those processes, the processes for selecting assistant principals, those things end up in the hands of the principal. And so in both cases we had a new principal, but wisely, in both cases they brought together building teams, had a lot of input. While the input came from within the building, there was a lot of input, and I think in both cases a really unanimous decision as to who the right candidate is. We had then still work to do because in the early summer we identified more than 90 candidates. Well, we didn't identify them, they applied, they came to us for the athletic director vacancy. And we used a process quite similar to what we use for the principals, and actually put in place someone around the first part of August, Jim Quattromoni from Hull, neighboring town, and his official work day, even though he's been in and out of the high school on and off through the summer, his first full official day of work was September 18th. We have one more administrative vacancy or leadership vacancy, and that is that Rose Doran, who is family and consumer science teacher, is also the resource teacher for that department. So she will retire in November, and we are looking for a teacher. As soon as that teacher is put in place, then we'll deal with the issue of appointing a resource teacher, because then we will have had 2 brand new teachers last year at the middle school in that department, 1 brand new teacher 2 years ago, and so we're not quite sure how that process will go, but we will appoint the teacher and then make the decision. Do you have a sense, Rick, of how many applicants that?
Right now we're at about 10.
About 10, yeah. That's a small department, not a lot of candidates. Since the license just changed in that department, and since many high schools dropped programs like that, elective kinds of programs, which we think are really important in a comprehensive high school, we always kind of cross our fingers that there will be an applicant pool, but we've done really well in the last 2 or 3 years, so we'll be hopeful and watchful for that. So we completed what we had intended to do around that transition, and obviously those transitions will go on. You know already that Debbie has announced her retirement for June, and we're just about ready. Jamie's put together the schedule, and as I think I mentioned at the last meeting, we will start before Christmas in terms of doing things like setting up the committee and sponsoring the forums that we've typically had for staff and for parents in terms of identifying the characteristics, the priorities, profile of our new principals. And then we'll be able to get going right after the holiday in terms of advertising. And we hope to get a lot of these things that come at the end of the process, like site visits and having candidates visit town, to be early enough that we avoid the very heavy May time of MCAS. That was a problem for us last year. You don't want to be disrupting things in buildings at that point. So we will be asking, so you can plan ahead, for 2 school committee members, and we'll have that list. Probably we can give them that list at the next meeting of who will be on the committee.
And we'll have the final timeline too.
And the final timeline, right, thank you. Social emotional needs. We had identified this, of course, as a goal for this year long before we had the HTSS process in place, and it was going to be our 2nd year of focus in terms of social emotional. Now, last year, the prior year being one, actually 15-16. It was the last year when we talked about the goal. We had focused on greater awareness, reading a book, collecting data, doing our own kind of informal identification of how many children were on the different counselor caseloads who had a concern in that area, and a lot of it was informal. In the following year, the year we've just completed, was going to be looking at more responses to student concerns. Then this committee was formed, task force, and went off in a little bit different direction of trying to get more definite information, more what really is there, not just what we think from looking at an individual caseload. And so I think that's a terrific idea, and the survey took off as being something that people thought was really valuable and would be able allow us to be able to target the things that we're trying to put in place for kids and for families. And so that's what mostly has happened since the mid-year report in the late spring and over the summer is really focused around the task force, and another thing we're really excited about. So we think there's been great progress on that as the direction changed, as it was revised, with work ongoing again into 17 and 18. It would be nice to think that we can find some responses to these concerns, some targeted services that can make such a difference that this doesn't have to be a goal, a forever goal, but for at least our immediate future, it's a forever goal that we know we need to work more on. And then the last goal was around facilities planning, and our original focus of this was to get going on the enrollment study on commissioning an independent external enrollment study and beginning some thoughts about how we would move forward with the master plan, because the master plan is broader than the response to foster. That's a big piece of it, obviously, and perhaps the thing most people think about when you think of facilities master plan, but there's much more that we need to look at in most of the buildings, and in some special projects that we've talked about for years, the Health and Wellness Center at the high school, the Windows project at Plymouth River School, and so on. There are those other things that are out there. The space needs here in this building, not just for the school department here, but for all of the departments here. Those are all things on our horizon. And but things changed when we got an invitation actually from the selectmen to apply for a statement of interest for foster. Came along about in January. So our focus changed a bit because we had to get our resources together to fill out the actual application and do all the things that we needed to do to get a positive vote on that from the selectmen, the advisory committee, and ultimately the town meeting, because we're asking them to establish a building committee and also to appropriate the money, over $700,000, that would be for the feasibility study that would be first step in the process once we're invited by the MSBA into that facility. So we've changed direction a bit there. However, still important is that enrollment study, and so as of this writing, one of the things I had said I would do would be to get some costs in terms of what an external study would be. That became an important point just the other day when we knew that the building committee was coming to request monies for the borings and the site work that will be done at Foster, but we also knew that we needed some money for what a enrollment study would be, and I did get a quote of $6,000 to $6,600, so that's about what I thought it would be the last time we did it. It was more in the $4,500 to $5,000 cost, but that was 10 years ago. So that was good to know, and John has put out a feeler, and I have a second one out that just haven't responded back yet. So we also are paying attention to what's on the website. MSBA website as a whole module, if you will, about the enrollment process. John has talked with them at MSBA to be sure that we can move forward with populating that. It's called an application, and we populate it with data, and we've got all of our data collected over the last 10 or so years, and so we'll be working on that, and at the same time working on that, but getting that to the point where we can contract with someone to do the study that will take into account not just the things we think about, how many kids are here this year, how many did that mean for last year, but more comprehensive things in that kind of a study, which would include birth rates in Hingham, and in fact in the state and in the nation, building starts, how many building permits are there out there, what about the reality of the two projects that we have, the Beale Street project and the Avalon 2 project, and what's the reality of the number of those children that are going to be coming. So it's not just counting children, it's counting other things that will tell us something about a pattern going forward. And then in the end, we will work together with MSBA to agree upon an enrollment for the building that we will either renovate or that we will build. That has to be a joint agreement, but we think we can get a lot done on that, and I'm excited about that because I like numbers of things, and we've been waiting a long time to get this going. But now we have money to do the study. We'll do the study. It'll put us one step further along the road to being ready to collaborate. So we think this goal is completed in terms of the steps we intended to do, although the focus was a bit revised from just master plan in general to foster as being the first part of the work that we need to do in that master plan. We're continuing to think of the breadth of the master plan, and John has a meeting scheduled for next week that will involve Doug and Katie, and who else is coming to?
Long-range planning committee, Doug and Katie.
Right, and to start talking about, given all the information that we have that Doug has been able to produce over the last couple of years, what really is the scope of both dollars and scope in terms of number of buildings that we have to look at. That's going to be important because we're undoubtedly going to have to get some additional money for master plan from capital, and good time to be doing that is getting started this fall. So there's a lot of excitement about that out there. So all in all, it was a challenging year, not easy for any of us, but for all kinds of different reasons, including personal ones and professional ones and so on. But while we may not have accomplished everything that we had intended and didn't always go in the same direction, that's the way it is with goals. Goals are goals. And I think when you write goals, at least when I do, I go into them thinking, these are all the things I want to do, and I know I can get these all done. Well, life isn't like that, at least not anymore. So I'm pleased with what we have accomplished. And in every case, these have been joint goals. Some more in conjunction with the school committee, such as salary negotiations. Others, goals that Jamie and I shared, or that Jamie and John and John and I shared, and so a real team effort, and I think we made very good progress, all things considered. So I will be presenting goals to you for the next cycle, which starts with the actual evaluation, which is the first part of November. And a lot of those things are somewhat determined by what's here and how far we got or didn't get here. But you can imagine, without any question, that Foster School and the master plan are going to be there, that the focus on special ed and social emotional is going to be there, maybe different focus targets for those topics, but they're just going to be there.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
It's just, if you could, Dr. Gallo, just add to the special population an update in terms of the evaluation, independent evaluation. I think you have some updates on that, right?
We're going to talk about that in subcommittee reports.
Okay.
Unless you
wouldn't it be nice to be included on this as part of an accomplishment? It's in progress, I understand, but I think we have new. It's
So
part
they
of the
got
Walker
the
report,
bids.
right?
So the task force received bids on doing an evaluation for the middle school. And they ended up with, they have 5 suppliers to.
Oh, I see. I was
and then-
misunderstanding your question.
But then in November, the task force will, so they'll work on evaluating those 5 bids that they got for the middle school project. And in November, they'll.
But we didn't get bids just yet. We got
Or you
intent to quote.
got, you got,
We got the intent to bid, essentially. So we got 5 of those, as well as either sample evaluation reports or resumes of the individuals who've submitted. And now we've structured a process with our task force, and actually all of our co-chairs are here, Katie and Liz. And we met with our task force last week and actually provided those bids, or the intent to bid, to them. The bids are due, I believe, is it next week or the 12th? The 12th, yeah.
I would point out though, Carlos, that those are 2 different things. So what I was reporting on tonight were the 5 goals that I set a year ago at this time. I think what you're thinking about is a goal that the special ed task force had.
No, but that also touches on the Walker report, right? Where it say schedules the progress for the following presentation of the district response to the 2012 Walker report, right? So I thought that since that was part of it, that was sort of like developed, the conversation developed from the Walker report, right?
Not
I'm not
really.
Well,
No,
all right, let's move
yeah,
on.
no, they're really not related.
Okay, thank you.
It's good progress of moving ahead with the,
It is
with the
positive, yeah.
task force is doing and that, so, on the overall objective of special education and special populations, it's progress, so. Okay, so on our process for the, evaluation, for the next meeting, if you could all do your individual reports based on the documents I had provided to you at our last meeting. And then the chair, I will do this, is take each of those individual reports and draft a summary, and then at our subsequent meeting, we'll have a discussion about that summary.
Did you send that out in an email?
It was
or-
in the packet of the
For the last meeting?
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to go
I
back.
can go through it.
One thing is that there also is an assessment process that all of us administrators use in terms of the people that we supervise, having them have an opportunity to give some feedback. I use a survey. When Pam tallied up the survey today there's 17 people I supervise, but some of them retired, so this year there were, I think, 12 people, and some were new to me this year and didn't work under my supervision. But in any event, we only got a response of 6 or 7, and so Pam sent out a reminder again, and telling them, the end of this week, you gotta get them in. If you choose, it's not required, obviously. But what she does is put that information, I think it's in a chart.
Great, yeah.
So we will send that out at the first of the week, regardless of whether we get more or not. But that's another thing that you might find it interesting to look at, or not.
Okay. All right. 7.5, to receive information about KnowledgeLink Exchange Program, a short-term exchange with China. This is a new program that Erica Pollard, our languages department chair, is suggesting.
Yeah, she had
And with Rick
researched,
Swanson, our principal, so.
And talked with Rick, and they both thought a lot of it, and she talked to me about it, and I thought it was worth a try. It is interesting that this year we don't have any foreign exchange students, individual students at the high school. And so this would be an ideal time. This is something that would happen in the spring, and with students from China, 18 to 20 students, and they would come here and stay with families. And it does involve getting host families, but getting host families for a shorter time, as we think, based upon our Tenoji experience, is a great thing. And so they researched this particular organization. So Rick might want to comment because he was part of the actual research.
Sure.
Do you mind coming up, either pick your spot?
Sure. So I had a chance, along with Erica Pollard, to meet with a couple of people from KnowledgeLink, and they had first come to Ms. Pollard's attention because they had collaborated with some other schools locally, including Scituate High School, and Erica had heard what a wonderful experience the folks over at Scituate had had the week that they had worked with KnowledgeLink, and they had brought in this group of 15 to 20 students from China who had lived with host families for the week, and great experience there. They've worked with a number of other school districts around Massachusetts, companies based in Waltham, and it's a pretty easy process from the perspective of the receiving school district. You just agree to cooperate with them. They bring the students in, they get them to your school, and they help you to recruit the host families. Erica's particularly interested in giving her Chinese students an opportunity to practice their Chinese at home and to have a chance to be a host for a week. So for Erica and I, after meeting with the people from KnowledgeLink, we could see no reason why we wouldn't want to go ahead and do this. We think it would be a great opportunity for our students, and a pretty simple process on our end too.
And we wanted you to know about it just because it was something that new, something that we haven't done before. I had my own foreign exchange student with a student from China who was here for a whole year in the 2002-2001 year, and it was only the second year that students were allowed to leave mainland China to come on an exchange student. And fascinating. Some of you, not many of you here, but some of you remember Jason, but great year, so.
Rick, would the students be in school for the entire week, or would it be similar to the Tenoji program where they're in the school for part of the time and then touring the area for part
I
of
think
the
it
time?
would be closer to shadowing for the entire week, but the option could be there, and probably depending on how much, say, our global citizenship program want to get involved with planning some excursions, that could be determined. But I think the students coming from China would be happy with whatever. They'd be happy to shadow our students through a full week of school, and we would expect that their English generally would be pretty good, and they would be excited about having the experience of being in class. But we'd anticipate certainly some other festivities and activities where students throughout the school could interact with them, and maybe some field trips as well.
No, it's great. I was just curious because that was pretty special with the Tenoji kids. Even for our own students to spend casual time with the students to understand lifestyle as much as schoolwork. And then in the memo it says that there are stipends involved.
There's actually a small stipend that's paid to the school and to help facilitate provide for any costs around activities that we want to organize.
Okay.
And I think there may also be a small stipend for the host families to help pay for food and so forth.
Pretty impressive.
It's a whole lot easier than the Tenoji experience where we were trying to raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
In this case, no expense really is needed, and the school would actually get a small stipend.
Anybody else have?
I would just suggest that they may not come in February. If we want to have this program in the future. We may not like Boston.
We don't want them to come and experience nothing but snow days.
It gets snowed out, yeah.
Sledding at the country club. Get to do that in China.
Except the Tenoji kids, they did enjoy their day when the game was rained out and they were, so you never know with the weather. But
Find a way to have fun.
Right. Great, well, it's a good opportunity to have that experience again, a little more turnkey. I'm sure your staff would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, 7.6, John's part of the agenda. To discuss and act on a proposal from the Director of Business and Support Services, John Ferris, to add an additional bus to the Hingham Public School fleet to be acquired via a 3-year lease to cover our sports and extracurricular programs. And we've talked about this at previous meetings, that we're subcontracting out for this extra buses, and that this would be more cost efficient. So John followed up on it, and he's bringing it here to us.
Yeah, thank you. We did scan a packet into there, but I have hard copy because some of the charts are, some of the charts are really, really small on it.
Yeah,
so,
some of these are really
not
small.
really legible. But the reason why the packet that's in there's so many pages is what I did is I just gave you all of the schedules on how we go out to bid. So basically, we look at each town and how many trips there will be for winter sports and fall sports and spring sports. Calculate the miles, how many round trips there'll be, so that we get an estimate of trips that we can actually send out to a vendor. So I just showed you all the details. We don't have to get into the details or talk about the details. What's most important, I think, is the lead page where I just shown you a comparison on how the bidding went with First Student. We're in the 3rd year of a contract with First Student, and if you take a look at, if we took all of the trips that we need transportation for that are listed, and projected those out at cost per student, we'd end up with an estimated budget for first student of like $132,132. If we did the same thing with our own buses, okay, we would end up with a projected cost for those trips of $70,577. Okay, so how does that work? The first student, the way the methodology works with first student is, it's saying, you know, for your drive time, how many miles will the trip be? So that their rate is $6 per mile. And what that $6 per mile covers is the fuel, the piece of equipment, and the driver's time for driving to the event, okay? Now, in addition to that, when the driver gets to the event, they're typically waiting. So then it's also billed out as per hour of wait time, okay? So if a baseball game's going 2 hours after they drive there, you know, you're gonna get $120. If it's 3 hours, it would be $180, plus that $6 per mile. So this is how all of the trips end up getting priced out. Now for Hingham, because we have our own leased buses, and since we leased the buses, Patrick has been able to take on a number of trips. We've been cutting that first student bill down a lot, okay? But if you look at our cost, $1.50, because I mean, if you take Duxbury, for example, if it's a 42 miles trip, right, $1.50 a mile, that's going to pay for our driver's time to get there and get back, okay? And it's going to pay for our bus use of, you know, the fuel that would be involved in the bus use and the maintenance, okay? Now, if it's Norwell, maybe you'd be losing $1.50, but there's a lot more trips that are like not 13 miles that are well over that. So I used sort of an average of $1.50 here. And then this per hour wait time, I used overtime, even though most of our trips, practically none of our trips are on overtime. But I just wanted to show you the comparison, okay? So that would be at a bus driver's rate on overtime. And you can see the calculations here for the estimated budget, the per hour of wait time, okay? And then the cost to lease the bus. In this thing, I use 2 buses simply because I'm doing a comparison of all of the runs, right? I'm not asking for 2 buses because we already have some capacity with one of our buses. Patrick's been very effective at getting 1 run a day in, okay, so we can actually save a lot of those costs. But you see the overall comparison, there's a cost per event of about $148, and to lease a bus from Dattco, this would be a used bus. It would be a 2014 bus that's in pretty reasonable shape. It would be for a 3-year lease, and the cost is about $14,000, which would include the cost of the lease plus the cost of insuring the bus, okay? There's about 94.4 trips to break even.
John, is that 14,000 total or per year?
14,000 per year.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It's $14,000 per year. And down below, I showed you the actual spending here. Okay, the 15 first student we did 40,737, and Hingham was 46,538. I think that we ended up being high that year simply because that was the winter from that none of us liked. So, right, and there was a lot of rescheduling that took place, and many of that rescheduling was on the weekends. So we got to use our drivers instead of using first student, okay? If you look at the next year, first student went up to 53,898. That's for 16, and that was the first year of our buses, but we did 43,784. No, that wasn't the first year of our buses, but Patrick took over and he was able to get some of those runs in. And then, and plus too, when we had gone out to bid, those first student costs, we knew they were very high. I don't know if you recall, Les, I think you were there when we did that, and Aileen, you may have been too. And we said, well, there was no other bidders. There were no other bidders when we go out to try to get these runs. But last year we were very, very effective. So first student billings were down to 30,439, and we were up to 58,541. Okay, which is a great sign because it's our drivers getting the money. That's very few are really on overtime. And then transportation, you may have a number like, so that you see 87, you see 96, and then you see 88. It all depends on how well we do in playoffs and what the overall schedules look like. So year to year, they won't always be the same, but generally they'll be within that range. But it's not gonna come in at an exact dollar amount. The second page of this packet, hopefully it's in the same one that's in your packet as well. Yeah, the second page. So what Patrick did for me was he put together, these are just trips for September and October of this year, okay? And he rated those actually at first students. There's some actuals in first students, but the estimated ones were based on last year's rate. You can see the cost for first student. And these are trips that Patrick says, if I had another bus, I can do those trips, okay? So if you did that comparison, you look, you see September total for a first student would be 3064. And we could do those same trips for 632. This doesn't count, there's no allocation in there for the cost of the lease, okay? I'm just showing you the raw numbers of what the labor would be because we have to consider that we need to come up with we have to cover $14,000 of a bus lease in order to make this pay, okay? Then if you look at October, we have 5,200 versus 1,000. Overall, the savings we would see of, for those 2 months, about $6,600 worth of savings. That would be a contribution towards a leased bus at $14,000. That's based on not overtime rates. Now the second column is just like, what if it was overtime rates? Okay, so I just took everything and I said, okay, call it time and a half for our labor. There's still a $5,800 savings, and that's just for like 2 months of the year. So, if you project this out for the rest of the year, you can see we can do the same for winter and we can do the same for spring. So back.
Sean, going
Yep.
back to the first page, when you have break-even trips and then 4.4, is that hours? Or
No,
is
that's events.
Okay.
That would be events, additional events that we could do.
Okay.
Okay, so whether it be a sport, baseball game, a soccer game, just another time when we need a bus instead of using first student, we would use our own. So if you look at fiscal 17, so when you look at fiscal 17, the actual spending, you see, well, there's not as much opportunity there as there was the year before, right? There's $30,000 worth of opportunity, and that will cost us at least $14,000 to pick up, but still it's $16,000 less. And in one sense, if it's, I look at it as here's an opportunity to save a few dollars, because we don't know if it'd be 30 or whether it'd be 40 in any given year, or hopefully it won't go back up to the 50s. But if it was really active, it potentially could. And plus two, we will have to go out to lease to next year. This contract for first student expires, and it probably would go up again. But our opportunity here is $30,000. So we spend 14. If we could pick up 5 or 10, to me it seems like a pretty good economic, break even. And Patrick wants to do this, and it wouldn't be a new employee that we take on. We have subs, okay, and we want to make sure we keep our subs actively engaged. Okay, so because then they stay our subs, and then when the drivers migrate, we get to keep those subs, and then we bring them on, and it happens. You see the fleet. We got a great group of bus drivers, but some of them say, hey, I've had it, I've got to go now. So it's great for keeping the flow of our employees active as well. So what I'm really recommending is then my thought here is if we did this 3-year lease, we're looking at $14,000 over the 3 years. Each year, $14,000, so that's $42,000. This 3-year would be in sync with what our other bus lease would expire. And at the end of this lease, with the big 22 buses that we have the opportunity to purchase a couple of as many as we want at a cost of $35,000. So, and Patrick will know the fleet. So it's possible at the end of this 5-year lease with these buses, we may opt or suggest, hey, why don't we purchase a couple because they're in pretty good condition. You know, we got a good handle on the maintenance. We're the ones that were the original owners of them, so we know how they operate. And, you know, we could actually reduce our expenses even more. So what I'm recommending is that the school committee authorize me to enter into this lease so that we can try to, well, I do believe we'll break even, and we'll do even better than that. I do think we'll show up with more savings. The whole program with these buses has been hugely successful, right? We estimated about $750,000 savings over 5 years. We know that it's more than that because the mileage is coming in better, the fuel is down. I mean, there's just a whole lot of pluses on us managing our overall transportation costs, and Patrick's doing an awesome job at it. And he wants more.
And are they, are they only willing to do a 3-year lease? Is that what it has to be?
Yes, yeah, I did try to get a year. I wanted to give it a trial.
Yeah.
I said, can't
It's
you
worth a
see if
try,
they can do a year, you know, but if it's not 3 years, it's not worth it to them, so.
John, when we do the budget review, could you ask Patrick to give us a better sense of the savings?
Sure.
So, yeah, he has some time to prepare it, of the $750,000 that you had anticipated.
Oh, yeah. No,
So just
absolutely.
once we get into the budget cycle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can show you those through actuals. I mean, it's coming in good, yeah. We certainly will. I'll certainly be happy to give you a
It's just
comparison.
good news to share.
It is good news.
Michelle?
I just wanted to confirm, so currently all the bus expenses are borne by the school department, not by any of the booster organizations? They don't cover the cost of any of the?
Well, Michelle, whenever you say all, I'm not sure if they, you know, there may be, most times for transportation for our games, it's our buses and it's going through the athletics budget. You know, if there may be some one-offs, I don't know if Rowan does something different, but basically all of the runs are sort of scheduled through First Student or through us.
Okay, so most of them aren't. I just
There
wanted
might
to
be,
make sure.
because like the volleyball team, I remember, used to do a trip in to see a BC game,
Yeah.
and they'd use a bus. I suspect maybe then it was being funded some other way, but I think that would be the exception.
Right.
Okay. Right.
But
No, I
that
just wanted
might
to make
answer
sure
your
that we weren't
question,
now gonna
but-
pick up a cost that some of the booster organizations were.
But also
Very
then,
helpful.
John, so speaking to that, if we had this extra bus, that would also potentially be something we could offer to them
It's available for field trips,
at
yes.
a little less cost than
Yeah.
out to First Student. So it's a benefit to the community as well as
It certainly
to the
is,
schools.
yeah, because we would, that's exactly it, so the bus we would get it for the athletic run, but we do have field trips and stuff, and, you know, it could be, and sometimes we can't do them all the time, right, because it's gonna interfere with the day's schedule.
Yeah.
Right, you know, they gotta leave at 8:30, sometimes maybe we can't leave at 8:30, okay, but this extra bus could leave at 8:30 because, you know, we have it for the athletic run, so it is possible that, but I can't tell you about those savings.
Yeah.
This is based strictly on athletic, and I wouldn't bring it to you if I didn't think that we were gonna make money on it, or we were gonna get, the town was gonna benefit on it, you know? And I'll watch it closely, and, you know, if.
John, this bus is now gonna be 3 years old. I believe you told us at one point that we do about 30,000 miles per year, so they're gonna come with some mileage.
Yep.
Would they be part of our maintenance program, unlike what was previously done with first student doing the maintenance, or they fall into our maintenance
Yeah, this would
responsibility?
be our maintenance, because we'd be getting it from Dattco, so we would maintain the buses similar to the way we're maintaining other buses.
Do they come with any kind of major component warranty? A big ticket item, transmission?
I'd have to check on these. I know our 22 have the 5-year warranty, you know, so, and that covers towing too, so if we have a problem with that, it gets towed out to Dattco in Norton. So, and Patrick's actually gone down to look at these buses, I mean, I forget what he told me about the mileage, but, you know, I can get that information.
Well,
but,
did they put new tires on them for us?
These buses would be in good shape now. Because they can't turn them over to us unless they're in good shape, because we have to give them back to them in good shape. I don't know if it has new tires, but I would think if a 3-year-old bus, it probably does have a new set of tires on it.
Yeah, I guess my only reservation is just a big ticket item is a transmission, an engine. Because it's coming used, and we've had no real control over the maintenance to this point.
Right, except for it's been part of Dattco's fleet, not another. And Dattco does bus transportation, so I can look into that.
Well, I support it, don't misunderstand
Yeah.
me, I'm just,
What's the cost of a new one to lease?
that was my next question.
We got 5-year buses, new ones that they were like 10.7, but it was for a 5-year lease. Right, so I mean it's a way to try it's really a way to try the program. I don't want to underestimate the possibility of a big repair, Ed, but I think that I think you're going to get a quality bus from Dattco, and we have a means to repair it. I could check on the warranty. I didn't ask the questions about the warranty because I don't really expect anything to go wrong with the bus. But I'll check into it.
But they're not going to be putting on the mileage either that our other buses are.
No. This.
Do they have a fleet of these?
I think that the buses. Did we say 30,000 a year? I think it's more like 19 or 18 to 20,000.
Do they have a fleet of these 3-year-old turned in? Can we pick the one we want?
Patrick already did.
Oh, we already did. Oh, I missed that.
He drove down to Bristol, Connecticut, to inspect these buses.
Oh, and he picked one.
He knows
picked number 724.
He knows which one he wants. if the committee should approve.
Okay, can we?
Yeah, I mean,
nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you think it's gonna save us money, we'll never know for sure until we try it.
Yeah.
But
And
if we never try it, we'll never know.
Right, and I
So-
don't think Dattco will leave us cold. I think that if it turns out to be a lemon, I think that they'll make good on the lemon.
Alright,
We're
so,
a good enough customer, so.
And I haven't signed the lease, so I'll make sure something like that gets into the lease.
Okay. Can we have a?
so I will.
Drivetrain.
Was that, you made a motion, sorry?
I will make a motion to authorize, John to go ahead and add an additional bus to the public school fleet to be acquired via a 3-year lease with Dattco that specifies a specific used bus at a cost of approximately $14,000 per year for,
Yeah, why don't you say not to exceed?
not to
14
exceed $14,000 per year for rental of the bus.
For 3, yeah.
For each of 3 years at 14,000, not to exceed 14,000, each of the 3 years.
May I have a second?
So moved. I'll second that.
Got a little thought.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great thinking out of the box and looking at the details.
Well, you gotta give Patrick a lot of credit. I mean, Patrick is the one who's been pushing me, he said, I need numbers, right? So, and he has gone ahead and got me the numbers.
Great.
Him and Mary Ellen Paula did some work too for
Well, thank
compiling the
you.
list.
Thank you, Patrick and Mary Ellen. We really appreciate it. 7.7, to receive the homeschool application for Lavinia, Christian, and Eloise Claydon for the 2017-2018 school year.
And the details, if anyone wants to look at them, there are 3 separate plans for 3 children in the folder.
And you're good with all the plans?
Yes, yeah, they're very well thought out plans. And 2 of the children were in school, homeschool last year, and 1 was with us, and all 3 this year.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the homeschool application. Do we have to do, we can do one vote, or do we have to do one for each?
You can do
Just one.
all
Alright,
the
so
same
I-
family.
I'll make a motion to approve the homeschool application for Lavinia grade 5, Christian grade 3, and Eloise grade 1, Claydon for the 2017-2018 school year.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, 7.8, to receive notification of the appointment of Stephen Henderson as a Hingham Middle School paraeducator. Welcome, Stephen. Other items, 48 hours? No? Okay. Subcommittee and project reports. Do anybody want to start?
Policy met today, got all the way through section 4, financial management. So we're just pending a few things, but we got all the way through that and discussed a gift from the class of 2017. And when our next meeting is October 30th.
From a long-range planning report, when we did started the field project, the track and the field project, at this point, many years ago, everybody on the school committee was working in various responsibilities. But as the project progressed, the long-range planning committee became the go-to group. And obviously that's how I got interested in it. And among the many issues that we dealt with, questions, discussions that came up over that several years, signage was significant. We had numerous meetings with respect to templates, wording, size, location, and so on, to thank the various donors who helped us with the project. We now seem to be looking at receiving several requests for signs. And it was suggested to me that maybe the long-range planning should step up and take a look at this. So my plan, by way of a report, is to look at the various requests and projects that have come up. I plan to put it on the long-range planning subcommittee schedule, which we have tentatively scheduled for next week. Discuss it at that level, come back with a report to the full school committee.
And the community outreach meeting is going to be held on October 26th at 11:15. Just a quick reminder that we have invited the kind of social media, internet, website, consultancy firm Stacker, so they will be presenting on that day.
Okay. And I'll just cover salary negotiations since Aileen had off for a couple weeks. So Dr. Gallo covered in her goals that we made good progress. Tonight we're going to talk in executive session about 2 of the units, and we've made good progress with the custodians and the paraprofessionals. And thank you, Carlos, as we've all been picking up from Aileen. So
Yeah, thank you.
it's been a good team effort, but we're making good progress on that. And then for special education, we met September 28th. And followed up on, got an update on the middle school evaluation project, and heard from the Special Education Continuous Improvement Task Force that project is on schedule with getting the proposals for that evaluation in the proper format, and so the task force is feeling good about what they got. That was the reports that I received. So that was a good thing. And we also went over the collaborative work plan, and I've also met with Katie Goggin with CPAC we're going to tweak that to make that even more user-friendly. So that's why I haven't given you a copy of it yet, but the next go-round we're going to tweak it again. But it's keeping us on track with a lot of the projects. So there's a lot of progress being made, and with the 504s, and then the CAP communication, and the manual, and now CPAC is looking at the staff manual and working on some takeaways for parents out of that, so that everybody understands all the processes better. So, and then tomorrow is the CPAC meeting, and it's the annual rights and responsibilities presentation. And so anyone's welcome to go listen to that if you want to know more about what a parent's rights and responsibilities are. And is that at the library?
No, it's actually here.
Oh, here, okay.
In Town Hall,
Okay.
second floor, I think it's the central floor.
Second floor conference, okay. So.
It does start at 7.
It starts at 7.
Okay, so second floor town hall. So we made good progress there. And then also I wanted to share with you, I mentioned earlier, I met with Dan Coughlin from the advisory committee. Tonight, the advisory committee is also meeting, and they are hearing the presentation from the subcommittee that is making the financial planning tool for capital projects. And then on October 24th, the subcommittee is going to present to the Board of Selectmen. And then Dan had talked to me about them coming here potentially November 6th. We have to, confirm that. And then the Board of Selectmen asked them to also go meet with the library and the fire station committee, other people that are having major capital projects going. So we'll have that tool soon. And then Dan was also asking me about our budget process and wanting some clarification, and some things he asked about, suggestions that I was like, nah, it's not gonna happen. Like, we don't need to sit through every meeting. I'm like, yeah, we do. So we're not getting rid of those things. But one of the things he did suggest was if we could put on our columns, we have the percentage increase, but could we break out the percentage increase of whether it's contractual, inflationary, or a mandate? And it's a lot of detail, but it goes to us identifying in our 5-year vision of what is it, something that it's just a regular contractual update, what's a cost that we're mandated to do, and then what's something that we're choosing to do. It's kind of like separating out special ed from regular ed, of identifying mandate costs.
That'd be easy to do that as a separate document, pull it out of, rather than line by line, so you can see the scope of where it is.
Yeah. So I'll follow up with John, but he said they really want to see trends and percentage increases as opposed to just dollar numbers. And then I also went over with him the 5-year vision plan and our grid that we had talked about, and he got it. And I went through it with him in about a 5-minute presentation, and he's like, I see it, I get it. You guys have social pressures and multiple constituents, and you have mandate pressures as well as a lot going on. And he said, the way you presented in this chart, I can see that and I understand
Perhaps
it.
he read our book.
So, yeah. But so I was pleased that doing it, he knows a lot more about what goes on, but he saw it and he got it. So that helped me to refine that message. So that was a positive step, and that's all I had.
Right before you close, may I just ask the committee to join me in taking advantage that our history teacher, Christina Khan, is here, and congratulate her and Dylan Davis for representing us very well, the Normandy trip. I watched the tape, I was very impressed, so thank you, congratulations.
Yeah.
You still have an event
More about it, you can come on December 1st in the library.
There's
Oh.
just-
Yes, Chrissy, and thank you for having that video produced because that was really exciting. And I know it was, from feedback I got from people, they were just excited to see a student so passionate about something different and about their learning in the classroom. And also seeing a teacher extending themselves and how a teacher really does look at all of our students and sees their interests and thinks of the students. So the whole process, not just the trip, but the teaching process and the learning process really came through in that video, and I hadn't seen something like that before, and so I was appreciative of sharing that with the community too, so thank you.
So 7 o'clock, November 1st, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and
At the
who's,
library.
who,
It's the Veterans Council.
It is, okay. Okay.
Okay, so 10, we have adjournment to executive session, not to return to open session. So I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session and not to return for open session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining with the Administrators Association and the Food Services Union, the public discussions of which may be detrimental to the committee's bargaining position.
Second.
And all those in favor, we have to do roll call.
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.